For centuries, the rise of great powers has often followed a familiar pattern. Economic growth leads to military expansion. Strategic influence expands across distant regions. And eventually, rising powers begin building overseas empires. Spain did it. Britain did it. Even the United States built a global network of alliances, bases, and influence. Yet when observers look at the rapid rise of China in the 21st century, they encounter a puzzling question. Despite becoming one of the world's largest economies and a major global power, China often insists that it does not seek to become a traditional empire. Instead, its leaders frequently describe the country as a civilization state, focused on development and connectivity rather than conquest. But is that claim consistent with history? Or is China simply pursuing power through a different model than previous global empires? Before we explore this complex question, take a moment to subscribe, and share the channel if you enjoy deep documentary-style explorations of history, geopolitics, and civilizations. Now, to understand why China approaches global power differently, we must begin with the foundations of Chinese civilization itself. Unlike many European powers that emerged from fragmented political systems, China developed as a centralized civilization thousands of years ago. From the early dynasties through the Han Dynasty, the political system of China emphasized internal stability, agricultural development, and bureaucratic governance. The imperial court governed vast territories through a complex administrative structure based on examinations, civil service, and Confucian philosophy. Rather than projecting power across oceans, Chinese rulers historically focused on maintaining order within the empire's borders. The concept of all under heaven, or Tianqi, framed China as the cultural center of a wider world where surrounding societies could interact through trade and diplomacy rather than direct colonial rule. This worldview shaped China's approach to external relations for centuries. Beginning in the 15th century, European powers took a very different path. Portugal and Spain launched overseas explorations that eventually created vast colonial empires. Later, Britain, France, and other European states expanded their influence across Africa, Asia, and the Americas. These empires relied heavily on naval dominance, overseas colonies, and direct political control over distant territories. China, by contrast, largely withdrew from long-distance maritime expansion after the famous voyages of Zheng He during the Ming Dynasty. Instead of continuing to build overseas colonies, the Ming court redirected its attention toward defending borders and maintaining internal stability. The result was a civilization that remained powerful but largely land-based. China's modern perspective on empire is also shaped by its own experience with imperialism. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, foreign powers forced China into unequal treaties, seized territory, and established spheres of influence across the country. These events, often described in China as the Century of Humiliation, left a deep historical memory of foreign domination. Western powers in Japan imposed economic concessions, controlled ports, and challenged China's sovereignty. For many Chinese political thinkers, this period became a powerful warning about the dangers of imperial expansion and external interference. When the People's Republic of China was founded in 1949, its leadership framed the new state as the end of imperial domination. This historical memory still shapes how Chinese leaders describe their country's role in the world. In the 21st century, China has become one of the most influential economic powers on the planet. Its manufacturing sector, technological development, and global trade networks have expanded rapidly. Yet China's strategy for global influence has often emphasized economic connectivity rather than territorial conquest. Initiatives such as the Belt and Road Initiative seek to build infrastructure networks linking Asia, Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Railways, ports, and energy projects are presented as tools for economic integration rather than colonial expansion. Supporters argue that this approach reflects a different model of global influence based on trade and development. Critics, however, debate whether such projects may still create new forms of strategic dependency. The debate illustrates how modern global power can take many forms. Some analysts argue that China is gradually constructing a new type of empire based on economic leverage and geopolitical influence. Others believe China is pursuing a fundamentally different model rooted in the traditions of a civilization state. In this view, China's long-term strategy focuses on stability, economic partnerships, and regional influence rather than traditional colonial control. The reality may lie somewhere between these interpretations. China clearly seeks a larger role in global affairs. But the methods it uses often differ from the imperial strategies employed by European powers in earlier centuries. Throughout history, empires have often expanded through conquest and colonization. But China's historical experience suggests another possibility. A great power can pursue influence through trade, diplomacy, infrastructure, and cultural exchange rather than territorial rule. Whether this approach represents a fundamentally new model of global power remains an open question. What is clear, however, is that China's rise is reshaping the international system, not necessarily by repeating the path of past empires, but by redefining what power might look like in the modern world. And understanding that difference may be essential to understanding the future of global politics.